So, welcome. This is our meeting for the Asian Coaching Supervisors Network. We meet once a month, and our goal is to bring awareness of coaching supervision in Asia. Everybody's welcome from all over the world. Every month, we have a different guest, a participant from this network sharing some of his or her knowledge and experience. And the request is that we do it interactive because the second goal is to bring and create a learning community. So with that in mind, I have been asking for volunteers. We have a few people already committed for this year, but if you're interested, please let me know so we can put you in the calendar so you also have an opportunity to do a presentation. So here is a learning community where we are all learning from each other. And with that in mind, Sukh, we are all ready to work with you. Um, what would you like people to know about you before we start?
Oh, okay, wonderful. So, hi everyone. Happy to be here. And so, I've been coaching for about, um, I would say, 8-ish years, 8 to 9 years. I worked with the coach and I fell in love with coaching, and here I am. And then I worked with the supervisor and I fell in love with supervision. And thanks to Damien, I completed my certification program in supervision in 2018 and have been supervising since then. I absolutely love what I do, and I get an opportunity to, be in the company of people like you all and learn every day. So, so that's a little bit about me.
So great to have you here. And what I want to ask everyone is to put in the chat room because we don't have time for everybody to introduce each other because if we do that, we're going to spend the whole hour doing that. But let's write down in the chat room your name and where are you calling so people know who you are and where you are calling from. And if you want to write anything else about you, like very short, that's nice. So in that way, people start getting to know each other. And so you also get to see who are here today.
Perfect. So, and how generally it works is, Damien, you'll give me the right to share my screen. Is that how you'll do
Yes,
it?
can you see the message that you're the co-host now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And by the way, I want to acknowledge because today, three of the participants here graduating from the as coaching supervisors. So
Oh, great.
congratulations to the brand new supervisors. We have Sunny, we have Danny, and Kimberly. So three of you, congratulations for being brand new supervisor. The graduation was today, so really fresh.
Congratulations. Okay, so, okay, perfect. Okay, so welcome everyone. Um, so, as I get started, just to ease into the session, we are coaches, we are supervisors, and specifically to our coaching work, uh, and as we step into this, supervision space, it essentially it offers a reflective space for coaches so they are able to look at their work closely and learn from it, and they are able to maybe generate some fresh ideas. They are able to hone their coaching interventions, and at the same time understand deeply, the relational dynamics. And in my experience, they go back resourced, they go back energized so that they do their best work with the clients. Supervision being a broader term, there are times we as supervisors advise, we mentor. I won't be surprised if some of us actually build skills, competencies amongst other support functions, in the coaching profession. And with this reflective work, the coaches are able to strengthen, their self-awareness. And more specifically, which is also the topic of our conversation today, our work as supervisors ensure that the coach practitioners have support with building their own internal supervisor. So our internal supervisor, is the friendly, caring, superego that is always available. Yeah, so I'm reminded of the title of a book by John Kabat-Zinn, and it says, "Wherever you go, there you are." Yeah, so that uh, and so this internal supervisor can be tuned into at times when formal supervision is not available, or in the moment when we are in a situation where I cannot, reach out to a supervisor. So engaging with our inner supervisor is a powerful tool, and it has the immense potential to invoke our own development at all times. I am deeply inspired by Pamela McLean's work. I, recently completed her book called Self, as a coach. Um, and in fact, I even brand my supervision work, my supervision practice, as building your own internal supervisor. Um, and it's very interesting. As I decided, when I said yes to Damien about this session, that was sometime in January or February, if I'm not wrong, and I put together some pre-work, and I was, I think, about 70% ready. And I thought, okay, when I'm closer to the day, I will just look it up. And 2 days ago, when I looked up the material, I felt there is so much that has changed. Um, so I'm based in India. How things were then in Jan Feb are very different, to right now. And then it gave me, a thought on if I have changed, if the environment has changed, I have changed, my clients have changed. Yeah, so I did a bit of a rework, and I reached out to some of the experienced supervisors and coaches, and um, in terms of them sharing their perspective with me, they shared how they've been in supervision groups, in supervision chains, and been in peer supervision for years, and how all that has shaped their own internal supervisor. Many, started with internalized supervisor, yeah, which is where the questions were, uh, what would my supervisor say to this right now? If my supervisor was present here, what what would he or she do differently? What would my supervisor have done in this situation? What questions would my supervisor have or would have asked? So a very in some ways idealizing, in some ways, um, in some ways admiring, you know, their own prior supervisor, and that, in their experience, they said it offered the space for self sometimes referred to as the borrowed thinking, and over time, this back and forth, working with different supervisors, being in different supervision environments, actually strengthened their muscle of their own personal internal supervisor. And they have established their own explicit or implicit processes of supervision. And overall, I have three inquiry prompts in my conversation today, and this is my first inquiry, prompt for all of you. It's an invitation for you to share uh, based on your experience of having worked with different supervisors over time. It's a possibility you have made the journey, to an internalized supervisor, and it's a possibility you have, transitioned to establishing your own internal supervisor. So the question that I would invite your contribution on is, what has been your journey of developing your own internal supervisor?
So do you want to send people to small groups to discuss and answer this question and explore the question?
Uh, if the time allows, Damien, because I can give 10 minutes.
It's up to you. It's your space. If you want, I can send people maybe shorter time. It depends. You have 1 hour for this session, so we have 12 minutes already in the hour. So I don't know how do you want to do it.
Okay, so let's send them to smaller groups.
Yeah, for 5 minutes you want? Is it maybe 6 minutes?
Yeah, 6 minutes.
So I know people, we need more than 6 minutes, but at least to have a brief conversation and start meeting
Sure.
people.
Sure.
So I have rooms of 2 or 3 people each.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, shoot.
So I can write the question. What has been your journey in developing your internal supervision?
Sure. And I think you have assigned a room to me.
Okay. So
You have, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I can't see it. Can you just, is there a way I can see it again? And which room do I join?
Do you want to join a group?
Well, I just thought it would be a good idea.
Okay. So you are in room 5.
Okay. And how do I join that, Damien? I'm not sure.
Press where it said breakout rooms. Can you see breakout rooms? Down. If you press there, you can see
Okay,
that.
hang on. Sorry.
Go down and you will see in the low part breakout rooms.
Okay, hang on. Okay, you've given me room 5. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everyone. And I'm wondering, would you know some of you from your respective groups be okay to share, uh, with others? What is it? Common learning, something that stood out for you in the breakout rooms. Whoever wants to volunteer, Kimberly.
I was in a group with Michelle and Antoine, and what was interesting is that just in the short time, realizing how each one of us checks in with ourselves in different ways. So with, if I may, you know, Michelle, it was more through feeling, and Antoine, it was more through writing and language. And for me, it was more somatic. And so I just found that fascinating that we each have our own different ways of sort of checking in with that part of ourselves.
Wonderful.
One thing, I was in the room with Sukh, and one thing that I was telling her as part of this journey of developing my internal supervisor, initially, for me, my internal supervisor was a little bit too critical. And then how to bring more compassion in my specific case to that internal supervisor, and not stay just on that critical in a certain way. But that was my own experience of developing that internal supervisor.
I think what stood out for me in my, I was with Scott, and it really stood out for me that Scott is a deeply reflective person naturally, and I reflect by talking. So I've had to find colleagues who are willing to come and have a chat with me if I deeply need to reflect, because I do it by talking, and I kind of envied him by who does it by really deeply thinking and writing. So
Sure.
definitely, yeah.
Sure. One more comment and then we'll get back to um, moving forward. Anybody? Okay. Great. So thanks everyone, for sharing. Um, so, um, you know, we have our own personal, preferred, ways of accessing our internal supervisors. Um, and it's also a possibility over a period of time. They evolve, we are changing beings. So that's also a possibility. Um, where am I? Give me a minute. Okay. Okay. Um, hmm. um, and as we move forward, in my experience, um, there are three aspects. Uh, if I have to put a bit of a structure on what are the many aspects that contribute towards establishing a stronger internal supervisor, I would say three. One is um, paying attention to our own, transitions, how as human beings we are changing, we are becoming, better versions of ourselves. Who I was yesterday, am I the same person today? It's a possibility that that's not the case. Yeah, so I am changing being, and regularly in our own ways. You call it journaling or having conversations with others. How are we changing? You know, what life transitions am I experiencing? What old ways of being that I am no more hanging. I'm hanging on to, and I am moving forward. So some bit of change, and sometimes the bigger context also. We are in this pandemic here, and a lot of stuff is happening, but and it in some form or shape it is, I won't say impacting, but it is, um, uh, I am learning and unlearning in this entire process of dealing with this bigger context. So this is one piece, and we are not going to be spending time on it. The second and the third is, in fact, not even as much on the second. For the rest of the time that we have today, my invitation to you would be to pay attention to the third one. So, so if you look at the 2 and 3, this is related to the reflection on action and reflection in action. So reflection on action is how, be it a supervision session or a coaching session, there is a reflection we do after the session, and there is a reflection we do before the session. Yeah, sometimes our takeaways, the way we process is, and what becomes then important for us after, that comes in our awareness, or a few things that we missed in the session. We make notes, we consider the shape of the session, what was missing, what went well. This entire process is reflecting on the action. That is when the action is over. I have stepped out of the coaching session. So the questions are, how did I show up for this session? What was the quality of my relationship? What were the interventions I used? What tools did I use? What was the lines of inquiry what will I do differently in the next session? So that's clearly on the action. And for the rest of our conversation today, my invitation to you would be to what does it take for us as coaches, as supervisors, and as supervisors supporting the development of other coaches, reflection in action. And that occurs when we are in a session and we take note of something happening and we decide to change. And this is what I refer to as our internal supervisor, tuning in, kicking in during the session. And it may draw our attention to, how is this relationship going? What more beyond the agenda is playing right now? What else is being shared by me and even the coach or a supervisor or a supervisee or a client, unconsciously? And what's the kind of work that we are doing? What kind of impact that it will have, or it is having? Yeah, so it's a in the moment sensing experience. And when I say it's about taking note of something happening and decide to change track, it's about the quality of our presence and us being courageous to act. So reflection in action is essentially about the level at which we were present, and because of that, the quality of the impact that it has on relational dynamic. And as and when I notice something in the moment, I'm courageous enough to do something about it, but that's in the moment. So reflection on action builds our understanding of what works and why does it work. But being in the moment and being spontaneous would allow me to step into who am I as a coach or a supervisor. I am less likely, even that thought of, this session has to go in a particular direction, or so that whole piece drops, and I am able to step into truly, who I am. So that's the piece that we are going to be spending our time in. So if I have to, you know, share, you know, so an internal supervisor, you know, what are the different names for it? You know, we have all our personal names for it. You know, this is somebody who is my inner companion, as Joe said. There was a time, you know, it is that for somebody it may appear as you know, there is a critic in me. You know, there's a persecutor in me, and it's, oh, I hope you do well in the session. I hope you will do the right thing, and I hope you will make an impact, and I hope you did well. And so there is this. So transitioning from that inner critic or inner persecutor to you know, can and being compassionate, you know, enough so that that you know, inner critic then becomes or transitions over time into a inner companion. You know, it is that you know, something sitting on my shoulder, or you know, a hawk in our mind who is making you know, its own observations. It's that encouraging voice, you know, within me, which is you know, which is, you know, asking me to trust you know, myself, and not you know, get triggered by you know, anything that's showing in the moment. And according to me, there is no comparable moment to the time we spend with the client. And if there is one contribution that supervision can make to help supervisees develop that internal compass for their work. And as I, you know, spoke to a couple of other coaches, the internals, according to them, the internal supervisor comes habitually. It's always there. So many times we don't listen to it. Many times we ignore it. But it is always there to provide so that the coach or the supervisor can attend to the process and the attend to the process and the relationship, you know, reflectively, while also engaging with the client. The internal supervisor being more autonomous, you know, helps us to respond to the you know, what is becoming, what is immediate, you know, a response to the immediacy of the present moment with thinking that is more clearly, you know, relevant to it. So it also strengthens the coaches or the reflective practitioners' independent thinking, as well as, you know, notices and appreciates their intuition, you know, and their interventions. And so it's always there to guide us. It's always there to support us. And if there is one core objective of an internal supervisor, is actually to help us to bring our best work forward. And in order for that internal supervisor to do that, it becomes important that we invest in this internal supervisor. So as a coach, I need to invest in my internal supervisor. As a supervisor, I need to invest in my internal supervisor. And as a supervisor, I am expected to, in the larger good, invest in the internal supervisor of the coach who I am supporting. And this is where my second prompt is. Second and the third, I was not sure how I will do with respect to time, so I put the second prompt and the third prompt in the same slide. And in fact, as I am speaking, I am even okay that you can pick and choose, or if you want to attend to both the prompts, which are, how do we as supervisors continue to work towards building the internal supervisor, that's in us. And second is, how do we show up that our coaches who we supervise, they acknowledge and they recognize and they hone their own internal supervisor. So 2 prompts, and I'm fine. Damien, if you want to open the breakout rooms.
Yeah, I am typing the 2 questions in the chat room so everybody have them handy.
Okay.
So now when you go to small groups, you can have them available to you to answer these 2 questions. Okay, so I am mixing people to put people that from different places. Okay. Okay, so have a good time. So I put triad and a couple of groups of 4. So how long do we have? 10 minutes? And then you have 10 minutes to wrap up?
Perfect.
So I'm going to put the right time now before I put the wrong time. So it's 10 minutes.
Okay.
So then you will have 10 minutes when we come back to wrap up. So how did it go in the conversation?
Very nice.
Good.
We were connecting, all of us are in the same region, and Rachel is a cool as well.
Great, great to hear. Sukh, back to you.
Okay. Okay. So this is where we walked into our own personal inquiries and sharing. And I did get to know that some of us are coaches and some of us are learning to be supervisors. So so the group that I was in, very interesting. I think the second question is more related to, in order, what's the bigger picture here? If you look at coaching as a profession, coaching as a way that people are able to access their best selves and they are able to bring their best work forward. If I am a supervisor, how am I showing up and what am I doing in the moment, in the time that I spend with other coaches and supervising them? How do I encourage, acknowledge, and sometimes point that the coach has in a fairly strong or in the process of developing an internal supervisor, and encouraging the coach to continue to access the supervisor, because that's a muscle. It strengthens as we continue to access it. Yeah. So in the process of me putting some thoughts together, what I found most valuable in my reading, and I decided to put it on this slide, is, which I think is shared by some of you as well, in the presence of another reflective practitioner, inviting or finding ways or making an invitation and finding ways and exercises and to so that they are far more present to as compared to being in their mental chatter. So if the question is how do I encourage how do I as a supervisor encourage a coach to access more of their internal supervisor, I consistently, continuously make an invitation so they move from chatter to presence. They move from judgment to self, to others, to situation, to being more compassionate. Sometimes I refer, in my conversation with clients, I say, okay, imagine there is a continuum and judgment is on one side and self-compassion or compassion is on the other side. Expecting you that you will, after 3 months, move from a judgment to compassion is a big ask. So I say, okay, considering you are more on the judgment side, and on the other end is compassion, how can you start traveling, in making your journey towards being in a bit of this neutral space, or start making the journey, and over some time, I'm not sure it's a month's journey or even maybe a 2-year, 3-year journey, maybe it's a longer journey. So what are the many ways that we invite the other reflective practitioner to move from judgment to compassion, from hiding, wheeling to vulnerability. And sometimes it comes from me, self-disclosure. I say, oh, this is what happened to me. Sometimes, it is the right timing. Sometimes it is not the right timing. So there is a bit of this permission, and that piece plays out. And when we are hiding, there is a part of our energy which is blocked. That means it is not accessible to us. So just imagine if, as we move into vulnerability, we have a far more flow of energy. So prompting the other reflective practitioner, be it a supervisor or a coach, to do this with us. Sometimes it's very important to be mindful of that if the learning has not happened in the room, it will not happen outside the room. So that's why I said, in the moment with the other reflective practitioner, what really happens? Can we do more of courageous work so that they move from fear to courage? What can you do so that they become more independent? They become more, they sit with autonomy, and they do some independent thinking. They don't have to depend on us. So these are some of my thoughts, and then what I did is I put together some of the comments that I picked up from my research. And what I found most useful from these comments were how if we as supervisors invite our supervisees to spend time on in the supervision sessions, they will walk away with certain practices that they can leverage when they are in the moment with their work. So for example, just breathe and see what comes up. And when the coach finds himself or herself in a sticky situation and actually practices that, and something does come up, they end up feeling far more resourceful. You know, they are served in the moment. They are more spontaneous, and they are more acknowledging of their intuition. They are in appreciation of their intuition. So these are some of the question prompts, the practices, and I thought I could present them to you. I'm also mindful of the time. We still have about 3 minutes. So what's next? Okay, so that's my last slide. And I will stop here, and if you know, any of you have any comments, questions, sharing, over to you.
We had a couple of minutes for people to share. Anybody who want to share some reactions, comments, observations? Do you want to stop sharing the slides so we can all see each other?
Comment, question as well. Can you give your experience of having your internal supervision? What kind of internal supervision that you have? So,
sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
what internal supervision that you experience yourself? Maybe you can share with us.
Okay, beautiful. So it took a bit of a time, but I am in a little better space of being present to, you know, to my, you know, the client or, you know, the coach on the other side, and at the same time I create a mental space for paying attention to what am I feeling in the moment, feeling, sensing, you know, and that's the space of my you know, internal supervisor. There are, you know, people call it, you know, different things, that being with another and also being with myself. But if I have to be specific, I would say I do create this, I do create this space in my head where I am an observant, as a I'm participating, but at the same time there is a part of me which is also an observant. And I do that not just in the coaching sessions. I tend to, because I need to practice it a lot more. I do that with there is this internal boundary I tend to, you know, create, or I practice. So I'm far less drawn into, you know, what's happening.
Starting to cut your.
So that will be my answer, Danny.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Is it just my screen that's frozen?
No. We were listening. You cut in some way, but we need to wrap up because we want to finish on time. But I want to share with you a couple of announcements. What's coming up in the next few months? So next, we always meet the same day at the same time. So it's always. But first, let's recognize Sukh. Let's recognize her. If you want to open your microphones and recognize Sukh for a very interesting presentation and an opportunity to reflect on our internal supervisor. I think it's a great opportunity to stop and think about that. So thank you for giving that this opportunity. And then next month, we are going to have Michel Moral, who is here. Are you still there? From France? Yes. We're going to be, he have been doing some research, and we have been doing some research together on supervision of supervision. So this is like a more advanced conversation. Is how is supervision of supervision? What happened there? What are the dynamics? What are the challenges? So we are going to be having a dialogue and a conversation with all of you. And then in July, Sunny, who's here, Sunny, you want to say hi? She's going to be doing a session on equity and diversity. And so that will be a very interesting conversation to have how this plays. And she's also going to be doing the same session for the Americas Supervisor Network on next month in June. So with the third Monday of the month, but it's not a good time for people based in Asia, but it's a good time for people being in Europe. So we have here some people waking up very early from France joining. So you may choose the version. The version this is a little bit more convenient time, 8 a.m., 6 p.m. for you. The third Monday of the month is the same presentation Sunny is going to be doing in the two sides. But always the conversations in small groups are different. So whatever happened in the exercises and the conversations are different. And then we also have committee sim choice for you to do a session coming up after that. And so we are almost covered for the year. But if anybody is interested here to do a presentation, please let me know, because we have still some times before the end of the year for anybody who wants to present can do it. So thanks everybody for being here today, and thank you, Sukh, again for giving us the opportunity to reflect on the internal supervisor. Okay, bye everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Au revoir.
Everyone.